Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the February 20 meeting of the Chatham Finance Committee. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023 extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. This meeting, the Chatham Finance Committee, is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided before the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling 508-945-4410. Again, 508-945-4410, and enter the conference ID 698-918-859 #, 698-918-859 #, or one may join the meeting online by Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. So with that, let me just take a roll call and try to figure out who's here. Joanne Sprague.
Here, Mr. Chair.
Kristen Andres.
Here.
Tracy Shields. Tracy, I know she may be muted, but Tracy is on.
Here.
Oh, great. Thank you, Tracy. Barbara.
Here.
John Pappalardo.
Present.
Andy Young.
Here.
Tommy Doan.
Here.
And the chair is present. We are fully accounted for. Thank you, everyone. We are going to continue our work today on our initial report on the proposed FY25 budget, which will be presented to the select board this evening. So we will focus on that. Then we'll look at our forward calendar and figure out next steps following this kind of landmark on our path. Before we get underway, I would like to take a moment at the request of the moderator and make an announcement. As everyone is too acutely aware, Norma Avalar stepped down from her service in the Finance Committee despite her deep affection for the work of the committee and for her town and her commitment to the town. And we all agree that we missed Norma terribly. Had a chat with the moderator yesterday and today, who has informed me that Eric Whiteley will be joining the Finance Committee as a member in Norma's stead. Not sure anyone can replace Norma, but Eric will be joining us, and we look forward to having him join us in short order. His papers have been drawn, he has agreed, and I guess he just needs to go get sworn in. So soon we shall have Eric Whiteley bringing us back to a full complement of 9. I'm excited for that. I think Eric will be a terrific addition, and I'm grateful to the moderator for working that through. So thank you. Okay, report to the select board. I circulated a draft, I think on Saturday, of what kind of incorporated the latest deliberations that we had last week. So let me just open it up and see what people think. Any adds, deletes, changes, hits, misses? Where do we stand relative to our goal, do we think? And I can only see part of the room. So Joanne, why don't I designate you the official caller on people? If I could, since I can't see most people in the room.
Sure, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there anybody who would like to stick their hand up in the air?
Andy.
Judging from some of the comments in the last, week or 10 days in the paper, we appear to be having an issue of volume of drinking water available. That in fact, we're still running above our current capacity. I mean, although we call out drinking water as one of the things that we need to make sure that we deal with, that's mostly in conjunction with housing initiatives, where it's just, I'm not sure whether the cause of the current shortage is housing or retail or somebody's open spigot somewhere all winter, I'm not sure. In any case, making sure that we have the sufficient quantity of potable water, I think maybe we need to emphasize a little more.
Okay, how do people feel about that? Anybody think that's a bad idea?
I think it's a good idea. I think we can't remind people enough that depending on population increase and the climate, that we always need to be on the lookout for new water sources. I had mentioned before that I didn't think of adding it to this document because it seemed like we were told during the process that there were, as we speak, efforts being made to find new wells. And when you're testing for a new well, you're going to find out if there's PFAS or not, as my understanding. So, but I think it never hurts to remind people how crucial a shortage of water can be, whether it's lack of water or increase of PFAS. Kristen?
I think it is sort of eye-opening that we do have a capacity issue with our ability to pump enough water, to have enough water in the system, and also given the fact that, well, a couple of issues, that we've faced drought in the last several years, and so that puts a real strain on our water resource as far as capacity to pump enough, and particularly for, as pointed out in the newspaper article, I believe, for water, for firefighting purposes, when we're in a voluntary or mandatory water conservation and people choose not to do so, I think that's an issue. And so if we look at the fact that our capacity is already strained with the population that we have now, and we are looking at, increasing how many fold through our housing. So I think we really need to take a serious look at our infrastructure and make sure that we can support new construction and also ways that we can either enforce or otherwise incentivize water conservation. Thanks.
Thank you, Kristen. Mr. Chair?
Yep, Tracy, I see that your hand is up, please.
I was just hoping, thank you, Mr. Chair, for clarification. I did not see the paper. Are we saying that there's currently a shortage? Is that correct? I was unaware.
Well, the Chronicle has an article that I think that Andy's probably referring to over the last week or two, that there has been, I guess it's estimated that at peak pumping in high season, we're at risk of running out of water. Is that correct, Andy?
Right, and in fact, I think it was the weekend update this weekend that actually specifically mentions shortage. I was trying to look it up as we were talking.
And then, Tracy, our document is sort of a twinning to Andy's point. Our document notes that given the proposed work of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and however many units of housing might end up prospectively on these various properties in town, which I think we all agree is a good thing, we need to make certain, to Kristen's point, that we have the infrastructure available to service not only the existing demand, but if we bring online another 60 to 100 houses across town, to service that demand as well.
John, did you have your hand up? Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry, Tracy. Were you still speaking?
Oh,
Go ahead.
no, I was just saying, thank you for clarifying. Yes, I recognize that. I just wasn't sure if there was, I was confused thinking there was some sort of critical issue happening right now that you were saying like somebody's water was escaping from the system at the moment. I'm confused. Thank you.
All right, and to the point though, I'm more than happy to add another couple of declarative sentences around the obvious importance, which we've been saying now for 4 or 5 years, of drinking water to this town. So I can certainly tack on a couple more words to our report if that's what the committee would like to do.
John?
Yeah, thank you. I agree that conservation plays a key role in handling this situation, but it's only going to take us so far. And I've previously remarked that I think we should be planning for the need to invest significantly more money into maintaining potable water supply. I'm not aware of how we could do that. I don't know if we can begin to set up a fund and begin to put money into it annually, or if monies that are returned every year instead of going back into the general fund could be designated to this fund. But I don't see the problem getting any easier to deal with, and I remain concerned that the PFAS issue is going to begin to rear its head, not just where we've seen it, but potentially in existing wells that, as we heard at a previous meeting, there's no indication we have a problem yet. And I think we should take this very seriously, and it should be the top priority for the community. If we don't have a safe and consistent water supply, we're in big trouble.
Andy?
I found the brief piece that was written, and essentially it's a draft report shared with the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee last week, and talks about the town will need to develop more wells and rely on regular water restrictions in order to keep meeting peak summertime demand, even with the 2 recently completed wells near Mill Pond. So that's I mean, we've for more than 40 years, we've been on a search for good well sites. I mean, Bill Schweizer used to do that all the time. And, you know, we participated somewhat in the Open Space Committee, and, you know, I think we heard that the town administration has got it on their list of things to keep doing. But there certainly is a cost associated with searching for them, never mind actually constructing them and whatever treatment they may need. We know we've got high iron in many places of the town, and so it needs iron removal. In fact, there was a test well in part of the Goose Pond land that apparently tested very high in iron. So it's got volume, but we'd have to construct the kind of treatment necessary to use it. That was all. Thanks.
I agree, Mr. Chairman, that now that I look at it, I think this, from my point of view, should be at the top of our list, because the study and the producing of new wells is really expensive. And we're spending a lot of money, this is my old song, a lot of money this year on things that I think, some of them, are not quite as important as our water supply, which affects everyone, not just this segment or that segment. It affects every single person in this town. So I might want to mention or recommend that we put that at the top of our list, because the other things pale in significance when we talk about their value.
Yep, that's fine. I will do that. And then I'd like to do 2 things. One, I see Tommy Doan has his hand up, and I'd like to take a moment and call on either Carrie or Jill Goldsmith, our town manager, to see if they can edify us to some degree or another as to their response to what was learned last week. I think this is, we've been going on about, you know, potable water and the egg upon which our golden goose sits for, again, 4 or 5 years now. This is the first time that I've heard we're actually looking at a projected future shortage through this article in the paper last week that Andy's referring to. So I'd be curious to see if we could carry or Jill's thoughts on the challenges presented by that finding. But first, let's start with Tommy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with all the previous speakers, and I think it ought to be at the very, very top of our list to get something going on this. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Tommy. Carrie or Jill, would you like to take a moment, please, to offer your perspective on what we learned last week or this weekend, please?
Mr. Chair, it's Jill Goldsmith. So the Select Board, as their top priority, had commissioned the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee to conduct a study and working with the consultant. So those results were discussed at a Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. It hasn't been yet presented to the Select Board, but definitely it's one of the highest priorities for the Select Board as well as town staff to make sure that there's potable water and water supply available, and for fire suppression as well. So this is a high priority. I don't have any comments on the report yet, but certainly the select board will review it. Did everybody hear me?
Oh, yes, thank you, Jill.
Okay, I'm sorry, thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Chair?
Okay, so Jill, you cut out online, but the last I heard that was a priority for the select board to make sure there's an ample supply of potable water. So if there's anything further beyond that, it would be helpful to know. Otherwise, we'll keep moving.
They directed the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee to work with staff on the report that was presented to the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, but it has not yet been provided to the select board yet.
Okay. So at this point, then, it's premature to be thinking about numbers of wells, locations of wells, quantum of spend, et cetera, other than this should be this community's highest and best.
We're not hearing you, Mr. Chair. You're frozen. Kristen, you looked like you were getting ready to raise your hand. Do you have something to say? There you are, you're back. You left us for a minute,
I'm
Mr.
back.
chair. Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened. So my only question was, I guess at this point, it's premature for us to really have any detailed information about numbers of wells or cost of wells or funding strategies, et cetera, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Tracy, have you got your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to agree, especially with John's points, that, you know, even if we don't have any of the specifics about, you know, a cost need, you know, creating some sort of earmark or space for where that kind of investment is going to come from down the road might not be a bad idea.
Okay. I can add that to our report. Anything further on this? What else have we got, please?
John?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to point out that I really appreciated the one big idea section of the letter, talking about the social infrastructure initiative and the proposed, I guess I'll call it a solution or consideration in the letter. And since I've been on the committee, this has been an issue that I think we've rung a bell on consistently, that Chatham benefits a lot from the nonprofits in the community and the volunteer hours that they put forth in loving the community and keeping it as beautiful as it is. And I think the example you point out and the facts that you present represent a really good opportunity for the community at large to get behind that notion and to offer some support. And perhaps it will engender others to step forward and participate even more.
Terrific, thank you.
I have one more thing, Mr. Chairman, and that
Yes, Joanne.
this year there have been big asks for capital projects. And I think we want to think about, there may come a time when we have to evaluate those projects versus creating more wells, cleaning more water, and all of that. So I think we should be really careful in where we spend the money. That, I know that's such a broad statement, but spending of the money also brings me back to the tax rate, which is it is the same as it was last year, which means no increase in the tax rate. But I looked it up this morning and found out that between 2010 and 2024, there was like a 5% increase in the valuation of Chatham, which means that even though we try and keep the tax rate the same, we got to understand that the tax bills, when there's that kind of increase, it's just a guess from me, but I would guess most all of our tax bill will, even with a tax rate that doesn't increase, that our taxes will increase. And I just think we need to remember that and remember what's coming in the future and what's really important to us and how we want to spend these big pieces of money, millions of dollars, and the different projects. That's all. Thank
Okay.
you.
No, in many ways, it comes back to the conversations we've had again for a number of years now around kind of needs versus wants. Yeah, it's agreed we need a new shellfish upweller. Does it need to cost $5 million? I think we're not so sure that it needs to, but that's where we're going. And when we have that kind of a mental approach to capital spending, unfortunately, it runs the risk of elbowing other things out of the way that might come along that could be more important or essential. So I agree that being thoughtful and prudent and preparing for, at least allowing for the prospect of the unknowns, as we have exhaustively referred to them over the last 3 years, makes sense. Thank you, Joanne. Other observations about the paper? I can't imagine that this is actually the perfect paper. If it's good enough, I'm happy to go with it.
Pretty close. Kristen.
I've had a perfect phone call. I've never had a perfect paper.
Kristen.
I don't know.
Thank you. So talking about a capital expenditure, I guess I need some clarification on the EV hookups at the airport. And because it was my understanding that of the big ticket price that they were going to cost, that we were going to be reimbursed by a grant or some other mechanism. And so those 5 hookups were going to cost the town $155,000 versus the monstrous bigger number that it was, 400 and something. Carrie, do you have that?
So are you asking if we're going to end up getting money back from the EVs? So I think ultimately it will cost the town $115,000 versus the $440,000 that they're requesting, but we have to pay the money up front in order to get them, and then we get our incentive back from there. So that's why he's requesting all of those funds. I don't really have too much more detail regarding the EV stations, but I know that they will probably be coming again and doing another presentation with you guys after the select board has placed them on the warrant and for you guys to make your recommendations for everything else as regarding the articles. So that's like the EV stations and the transfer station. I know that you guys have questions on those.
Okay, thanks on the EV. I just wanted to be clear that while it was close to $500,000 to
Yeah.
put them in, over $400,000, it was going to cost us $115,000 at the
Correct.
net cost to the town.
Yep, that's right. You're welcome.
Barbara.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Joanne.
Whatever.
I agreed, however, with all the questions that Stephen asked in his memo. I think we don't know anywhere near enough about the EV charging stations that we should spend even $115,000 until we have the answers in hand.
Thank you, Barbara. Tommy
Kristen.
Dillon, you got your hand up, I see. Oh, I'm sorry.
Kristen.
Let's let Tommy go. He's got his hand up,
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
then I'll come back to you. It's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the $115,000 a year is a luxury that we don't need at this point. Thank you.
Kristen.
Thank you.
And I guess my view of the EV stations is that it's just another part of the town's infrastructure that we need to get with the program. Many years ago, when I first started with the town, our big thing was putting in public bathroom facilities because we didn't have any in town. And I think this is also like, let's get with the program. It's 2024. A lot of people drive electric vehicles. If we, number one, want to be friendly to visitors coming to town, I think we need to have these available in our community for a fee. I'm not saying that we do this and subsidize this as at no cost to the town. I think they can be fee stations. But I think that to not do this just seems to be kind of short-sighted. And I think given the big financial reimbursement that we'll get for the expenditure, seems well worth it. And I would also suggest that the town should also, if they're not already, that we be looking into what we can do to provide them on town property for town employees, because I think that also we should be facilitating, if we are an environmentally conscious community and trying to be progressive and concerned about reducing our dependency on fossil fuels, that it just seems to make sense that we would include these improvements in our town's infrastructure. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to go back to John's comments about having a fund for water protection and
Before we do that, Joanne, I just had one follow-on question to the EV conversation. And
Yep.
I think clearly we need to learn more. That's what I have heard, and that's what I tried to summarize in our paper before we can take a position on it. But I guess I don't disagree with what Kristen just said. I guess what I'm kind of curious about is how did we decide to park these things in what I would consider to be a relatively obscure parking lot on George Ryder Road with seemingly very little ancillary attractions nearby? I mean, if I'm up here from New Jersey and I need a little juice, I mean, I guess we can go to hang out at Hangar B, which certainly is one of the better things that could happen to somebody. But why aren't we talking about doing these things down at the Eldridge Garage, for example? I mean, it's like putting them at the transfer station. There's got to be a better place.
So, Mr. Chair, from my point of view, that's, instead of appropriating that kind of money, from my point of view, I'd say that's worth a study. And when you're placing it up against other needs of the town. But what I wanted to go back to is what John mentioned about.
Hold on, Joanne, hold on. Jill, our town manager has her hand up,
sorry.
please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So there are charging stations planned for the Eldridge Garage parking lot. There were charging stations planned for 549 Main Street parking lot. It just was put on hold. We were trying to time everything with the utility replacement, water and sewer. So there's a plan coming. It's just that the Airport Commission and Eldridge Garage took advantage of an opportunity for a grant that will be available later on, but this was the first stab at it.
Okay, well, that makes considerably more sense. Thank you, Jill. So Joanne, back to you.
Yes, back to John's comment about a special fund for water capital expenditures needed. Right now, we have the fund coming in. We've established a name for the amount of money that comes in for Harwich's entree into our sewer system. Could not there be I have to ask Carrie or Jill, I don't remember if that can also be used for wells or water capital expenditure.
I think it's just the sewer, the wastewater.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, and not regular water.
But I don't know whether that would be something that would be within the water department budget, but I think it's very important. I think that's a good idea to start thinking about where some form of income comes in that we devote to our water sources and resources.
Yeah, I don't disagree. All right, thank you, Joanne. So back to our paper. Anything else you want to add, delete, tweak, emphasize, de-emphasize, or are we good?
John.
Yeah, thank you. Just I guess a thought and a question. I mean, we do a decent job of getting projections on debt into the future. We have a capital projects calendar that we review periodically as well. Those are all very important for the Finance Committee to have that information. I'm wondering if it's possible to also get projections for on the operating side of the budget in terms of compensation. Now, I note in the letter and in previous years, We see increases department by department. These are step increases, longevity, so on and so forth, new union contracts. So we have that information, and I think it would be helpful as we move forward to understand where the sewn-in or guaranteed increases are going to come. And I think it would be helpful to also understand, for the taxpayer to understand how much money of our taxes goes to pay the people that serve the community in aggregate.
Carrie, have you got a thought on that, please?
Yeah, that's something I can get for you. You want salaries versus expenses, so how much you pay per year out of the operating budget for your salaries? Yeah. No problem.
John, are you thinking about, sorry, go ahead, John.
No, go ahead, Mr. Chairman. I defer.
I guess, Johnny, thank you. John, are you thinking about in the context of just having a line of sight into things that we want to make sure aren't going to blow up in front of us?
I think so, yeah. In the broader scheme, as we're annually sifting through the request for funds, and each department comes before us as well. In the past three or 4 years, we've received requests or suggestions for staffing levels that were inadequate in different departments, and the town has responded at the most recent town meeting, supporting an increase in staffing levels, and I think we're at pre-pandemic levels again, and it's a major expense, right? Segment of the expense that the taxpayers cover on an annualized basis. It just struck me as I was reading this letter that we do have visibility for the next few years, at least on the contract side of things, right? We should see what that is. What are those commitments next year, the year after that, the year after that? And how do those fit into the considerations we have before us of the capital projects requests and the capital calendar? Maybe we can see out year 2 or 3, things are going to get difficult. Maybe we can take steps today to smooth things out. I just think it's a piece of the picture that would help me do my job here.
Yep, totally get it. So Carrie and or Jill, have you got a view on that? It doesn't sound unreasonable, but is that possibly something we can get some visibility into?
Mr. Chair, so that's something we've provided in a different format for every budget summit. We've looked out 3 years and also anticipated with salaries, but certainly we can do that. We're still in contract negotiations with all of our unions, but town meeting did fund a compensation plan 2 years ago. So we definitely know what the steps are. The only thing of question is the annual local revenue growth factor, cost of living.
Yep. Okay, well, that'll be helpful.
It's doable.
So we'll put that on our list. All right, thank you, Jill. Thank you, John.
Mr.
Anybody
Chair,
else coming back to our?
one more
Joanne?
thing in regards to that. And I think as a committee, we should try and do a more thorough job. And I admit I have not this year, as I usually do. And as we're going over the different budgets, remind the taxpayer that a contract, things now not only considers, has the cost, the increase, the step increases, but it has a cost of living adjustment, which we used to vote at town meeting, aside from the contract. And as far as like the police budget, there's something I usually bring up but didn't. There's embedded in that a Quinn bill, which is extra money given out according to the meeting of education goals for the police officers. And I think that's our responsibility to take what the administration gives us and make sure we translate that for the taxpayer and the public so they know what a salary really includes, plus the cost of the benefits for that particular position.
Yep, fully agree. Fully agree. And it sounds like that's information we have, and as the contracts are finalized, we'll be able to crystallize. Okay, back to our paper. Wow. So if there truly are no other observations around the paper, I guess I will take a motion to adopt said paper. Last chance.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Is there a second? Any further comments,
Yeah.
deliberations, questions, queries? All right, there being none. So in favor of forwarding our paper to the select board, reflecting our views on the preliminary proposed FY25 budget, Joanne Sprague,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Tracy,
Yes.
thank you, Barb,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Andy,
Yep.
Tommy.
Yes.
All right, and the chair's in favor. So mechanically, Jill and or Carrie, should I just send this to everybody? Should I send it to Kathy and have her do it? What would be the optimal way for this to get to the hands prior to the 5:30, 6 o'clock, whenever that's going to be heard this evening?
Yeah, please send it to Kathy. The select board always looks out for her emails right before the meeting anyway, so that would be great.
Great, terrific. I'll do that as soon as we're done.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. That being done, thank you everybody for the input. I appreciate it as ever. Carrie, can we have a word, please, about our forward-looking calendar? What have you got in your crystal ball?
Okay, so on Thursday, the 22nd, we have community services, which includes council on aging, recreation, and beaches. And then on the 27th, we have the schools, Monomoy Regional School and Cape Cod Regional Technical School. I don't have anything else on the agenda going forward yet.
Okay, so Carrie and I had a brief conversation this morning, and my thought was that after we, I think, again, I was out, as everybody knows, I was out for 2 or 3 of the sessions, but I think we've covered all 4 corners of the budget to date. We just heard about the schools on the 27th, COA, beaches, community services on the 22nd. It strikes me, in looking broadly, that from there we go on to warrant articles and begin to chop wood on that. Carrie, do you have any thoughts, or Jill, on whether there will be things for us to begin to review and or talk about beginning at the early stages of March relative to warrant articles, please?
So, Mr. Chair, I can speak. So the select board on their meeting of the 5th, they'll be going over the CPC articles for which you've already reviewed through FinCom. It looks like, so we're looking like we have about 47 articles on the warrant in total. And the placement of like the transfer station and some of the other larger projects are scheduled for March 12th. So I don't know, the ones that they've already voted on and that they plan to vote on tomorrow night, there's 2 meetings this week. We can take a look at those and see if we can schedule those possibly for the following week, but the bigger items have been introduced already, but they'll be scheduled for the 12th of March.
Okay, and when do we need to have, when's our drop dead on our report, roughly?
The select board is planning to close the warrant on the 19th of March. So Carrie and I just need to connect on how to schedule the items before the select board. It's just a couple of them. I'm not sure if they're actually going to place or not. I think they will, but I just need some time with Carrie to coordinate.
Yep, understood. Well, maybe we could have a conversation offline along with Carrie. Because if they're not going to start taking on the warrant articles until the 12th, and our reports due on or before the 19th, that gives us approximately 1 day to do the entire warrant, which is going to be challenging.
So I just want to go over a couple of them, like the dredging that's on the list was already, has been gone over. That was through natural resources. They talked about the dredging. And also the capital, the wastewater capital stabilization fund was discussed as well. So there are a couple of articles.
Let me just jump into, so those were both at meetings where I wasn't present. Joanne, did the committee vote in support or against those warrant articles?
No, they didn't vote on
Mr.
any of
Chair,
those.
we didn't vote on anything while you were gone.
That's my concern, is that we really need to start voting. So, okay, well, why don't maybe, Jill, would it be okay if we just sort of took this conversation offline and kind of
Yep.
figure out an optimization strategy for getting this stuff taken care of?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Ann Ryan, are you within earshot?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, Stephen.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Could you and I also possibly liaise around open minutes? So we can
Sure.
begin to clear the decks on some of those? Maybe if you have an opportunity to send me what you have in your roster.
Yes,
And if there's questions on ones where I was not present, I can reach out to Joanne and others to get approval. But I think I'd like to start clearing that backlog and getting those posted up on our website as well. So if we could, please.
okay.
Great, thank you very much for that. Anything else from the committee?
Mr. Chair,
Please, Joanne.
for us, can you ask Jill if she has an idea of when they will be hearing your report tonight? So in case we can get to the meeting.
Yeah, the meeting starts at 5:30. They've got some cats and dogs as per usual that they need to wrangle. 5:45, 5:50 is what I've been led to understand. Jill, any refinement to that?
Yes, we had to continue some of the public hearings that were scheduled from February 13th, so we have a little more than usual. But for the first action on the business agenda is the Finance Committee preliminary report.
Sweet.
Okay, thanks.
So conservatively, again, 5:45, 5:50 maybe, and maybe they get to us around 6 or thereafter. But I would welcome everybody's participation and support to the extent you can do so. Those who run college tours are exempt. But otherwise, if you can join us, I'd welcome the opportunity to have you present and offer any guidance or thoughts relative to what we're conveying to them. Okay, anything further from anyone? All right, there'll be none. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank
Second,
you, Tommy. Second. Thank you, Joanne. In favor of adjournment, Joanne?
yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Tracy?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Tommy?
Yes.
All right, the chair's in favor. I hope to see you guys later tonight. If you can't make it, fully understand, but I hope you can join us. I will add a couple of words to the drinking water section, and I will move that section to the top of the list as requested by the committee, and then I will save and circulate it to Kathy for distribution to the select board, and I'll ask that all you guys be copied as well. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great day, and perhaps we'll see you tonight.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.